just going to click randomly in the background, waiting for people to turn up to this thing. Try not to buy things online. My mic to place my keyboard. But there you go. Hello, one viewer. We're just waiting to get everyone in place. Getting the old hangout set up. Hello.
Ooh. Hi. Hello?
Hello. No? How's the wind tunnel?
Hello, world. The wind tunnel's lovely. Just flew in from Heathrow.
Oh, that's cool. Alright, I'm just waiting for a couple more bolts to turn up. I've just built a new camera. New camera? Built on a new computer. It hasn't got a camera, but I'll be damned if I'm not using it. It's so sexy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Okay, you're just shocked at what I say. It's fine.
Oh. It's this modern technology. It blows my mind. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Just trying to find the dotBUILT book club password. Can you share that Google Hangout on the dotBUILT book club?
Sure can. Everyone watching just bears with us. This is what happens when it's the very first show, on Doctor Who and other things like that. Glitches and such.
Oh my god, everything goes mental whenever I do anything on this new machine. Everything logged in on a new machine. On everything. Everything does it. Which sets off my phone, which sets off my watch, which sets off my screen.
It's like tubular bells.
So they can't. Yeah, it's a little bit.
And we're off. Hopefully everyone will get that tweet we just sent.
Yeah, I'm gonna retweet it.
And then they could join.
The book club.
Hello, everybody. If you're listening, and you could follow us at .be book club. That's DOTBE book club. And on our feed, I've just tweeted the Google Hangout link that will allow you to join us.
Where have I put my copy of the book? It's not very good that I don't have my copy of the book on me, is it? I need to go get it, I think.
It's probably best.
Just gonna have a little pop at
Well, I could
He said he joined. Hey, you. Join the hangout. Adrian. Hey, you. You too. Stefan on this. I wonder. The old Stefan Molyneux. He's not.
I think we're also going to enjoy the add or controller, whatever they call it, control panel later. Do a bit of editing. We'll cut out the this bit.
Oh no, this is. It's going to be the highlight. I say it's going to be the highlight where they'll be like.
Oh, we're gonna have a
Like, that kind of nine.
what do you call it? Those gag reels.
Yeah, yeah. If you could just fall off your chair, that'd be amazing.
I'll drop something at some point.
Oh, that's just a guarantee, is it?
I think Andrew said he had an Asda delivery that he's waiting for.
Yeah.
Supermarket. There are many out there. Not sure what our rules are on a whatever that's called. Balanced view. Not advertising. But of course we'll be talking about this book a lot. So
Okay, right. I now have a video camera. Let's get it installed.
mm-hmm.
Oh, this is such a nice game. I've waited so long for this. Da, 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 da. Okay.
Well, I was trying to convince Andrew to be the disembodied voice. So disembodied voices are welcome.
Yes, they certainly are. They certainly are. I'm going to go grab my my copy of the book. Be right back.
Nice. Marzio Bolpaghi? I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Thank you for liking our tweet. Please come join. Joining will be fun. Let us know how you're finding the book. And I hope everyone out there can hear me. If you're just joining us now, this is the book club. This is our first meeting, and there's a few glitches, but we'll iron them out. This is the first meeting we're having live online, and we'll be discussing Chapter 1, The Grand Bargain, the future of professions.
So there was.
You back, Henry?
I am back. I am back indeed. Pause because it's a new computer. It's trying to download the entire planet. It's trying to download drivers for absolutely everything and updates for absolutely everything.
Oh dear.
Under wraps while we're online. So yeah, I was just gonna get straight in with some of the comments that we've had on the dotBUILT Slack channel about the book. Tons of books, haven't we? I mean, it's kind of hard to keep focused on one book, to be honest. There's so much going on. But
especially lately, there's lots to be reading. If you're working in the AEC industry or architecture, engineering, and construction, for those joining us who just happen to like books and
personal umbrage with.
You have personal umbrage with the acronym AEC.
Yeah, but
for another
time, I suspect.
For another time.
Adri, yeah. I can't pronounce his name, but I keep trying, and that kind of upsets him. He just wants me to call him Adrian, but I'm like, mate, you're French. You're a French man. I'm going to call you by your French name. That is simply how it is. That's what I want to say. Is he in this one? Yes, here we go.
I have.
So the line that he pulled out was, is I suppose the line that summarizes the entire first chapter, or perhaps even the book. Our professions are unaffordable, technology, disempowering, ethically challenged, underperforming, and inscrutable. His comment was, lay it out, Suskin. Damn, boy. Kind of lays out the facts, as it were. In terms of...
Yes.
Just, I mean, all of those, each one of those points, I mean, I think this is a good introduction. It's well written, this book, generally speaking. So things like...
It is well written.
Our professions are unaffordable, underexploiting technology, disempowering, ethically challenged, underperforming, and inscrutable are basically the headings for the next chapter. So it's kind of laying it out and saying, this is what we're going to talk about.
Yes. I think both authors are solicitors, so that they've written something that's so easily digestible, but very concentrated in information. Rhetoric is...
I'm going to Google it. Okay, I don't want to add him on LinkedIn, but one of them was an advisor to Tony Blair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think there is a fellow at Oxford. The publishers, I suppose. Yes, folks, we do our research before we start talking about things.
It's, that was so 20th century, knowing your facts before you start talking.
Yes, I think Melvin Bragg could feel safe in his job.
Yeah. Well, if we had a Melvin Bragg here, we'd be in a lot of trouble because he'd be roasting us. I don't know. I read it. What do you want from me? Doing in our time today.
Yeah.
It was actually quite a nice
In our profession today, that's what this will be called.
Exactly.
In our profession
in
today.
our profession today. Because in our time, it's something, like history. He's kind of cool with it. It's kind of fun. It's like, so what happened? What happened here? What happened then? What do we know about this? It's kind of fine. But then when it's physics, or something kind of massively scientific, he just asks the most awkward questions, and you could just feel their kind of tension go through the roof as they're trying to, well, that's a good question.
I do like those because I think it makes the speakers have to backpedal way back into like tricycling, backpedaling, to kind of explain things. But I'm sure there are a portion of the listeners who are like, thank you for asking that.
Yeah, well, that's what he does. That's why he's so good, because he does, as you say, kind of makes them go from first principles, which I think they're probably, most of these people are, well, no, they're all, experts in their field. They're not used to doing first principles. They're used to doing kind of, oh, it's given that you've looked at this for 15 years, and
yes,
now I'm going to talk about this bit. So no, okay, take all that away. Start from the beginning. And some of them are really good at that, and some of them just are hopeless. But
Anyway, switching gears from radio presenting profession back into the general topic, all professions, which is quite a hefty topic. Yeah. So the comment you got from, was it Adrienne? Am I pronouncing it right? Sorry if you're out there, correct me. Yeah, so his bit kind of refers to, there's a list where he's describing what a professional is, that they have specialist knowledge, their admission into the professional realm, it depends on credentials of some sort. They have regulated activities, and they're bound by a common set of values. And I really want Andrew to jump on if he's listening, because you guys had a discussion on the Trello board for the book, these points. I was wondering what your thoughts were, if kind of being a professional means just box ticking.
I mean, in terms of kind of, we'll get back to that when he kind of comes in. I kind of like the fact that, and I'm not a Marxist by any stretch of the imagination, but I like that there is a little bit in the grand bargain about the influence of Karl Marx, and it treats it even-handedly, and that's what I think kind of describes this book quite well. It's very even-handed. It will, it will balance views. I mean, I've read the whole book already, and it's my second read through, and some of the stuff, occasionally, like, they give a bit too much credence to IBM Watson, in my opinion, but at the same time, they do this sort of thing where they're looking at Karl Marx and Marxist thinking, and they're saying, if not a fourth school of thought, then at least a very noteworthy pattern. So they're telling you their own bias against it, but also giving their opinion of how it could be interpreted. So here's one from Krause, a quote of theirs: "The surrender of positive guild values of collegiality, of concern for the group, of a higher professional ethic beyond mere profit, that has eroded the distinction between professions and any other occupation, and thus left them together as the middle level employees of capitalism." I just think that's so cool.
There's another Elliot Krauss quote that caught my eye, where it said, "Professional work can be profitable if it is organized in capitalistic forms." And this is where they kind of go back and forth describing the origins of a professional and the moral core, and how being an upstanding citizen and a professional was linked, and is still linked. We still see doctors and lawyers and so forth as kind of people of authority.
I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? It's kind of very easy to say, "Oh, I know what profession is."
Yeah.
We say, "What's the future of the profession?" So they're saying, "Okay, what's a profession?" And we just, it's the kind of thing, if you don't look into it, you go, well, I know, everyone knows. And then
Yes.
you actually scratch beneath the surface. And there's a lot of grey areas in terms of, as you say, that kind of professional respect.
Yes.
Does that make you a professional? Because certainly being an unskilled labourer isn't considered to be a professional. Well, where's the line? And there isn't really a line. And that's kind of interesting, that the line's kind of a social construct in itself. Very interesting.
Yeah, they do a good job, in my opinion, to unpack the idea of what a professional is before they then jump into how technology is going to affect our concepts of professionals. Oh, hello, we have a joiner.
Hiya.
Hi, David.
Hello. How you doing?
Hey, David.
Oh, thanks for joining us in the middle of your commute, it seems. Oh, you've muted yourself. Oh, there we go. Was there an arrival announcement? Next stop, Westminster.
This is slow 21st century right now. Oh, he's talking away. Don't talk away. Don't
Yeah.
talk away. We can't hear you. Buddy.
Microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There we
There we go.
I'll just mute and leave you to it, because otherwise it'll be too noisy, but I'd like to listen in. You can see my commute outside.
Yes.
No, let's have a look. Whereabouts?
Sorry, interrupting.
No, it's fine.
Going through Woolworth. It's not very exciting.
All right. Technology, you could join a book club while commuting on a bus.
Yeah, it's a good thing, isn't it? That's great. Well, anyway, good to see you all. Sorry to interrupt your discussions.
No, jump in whenever you want.
Will do.
We were just discussing Karl Marx.
Yes.
I think we should think that. I mean, I'm not a Karl Marx expert. I just felt
I am not a Karl Marx expert either.
I just felt that it was nice that they took it in. That they you get the feeling, and certainly when you read through this book, you'll see it. There's like, on most pages, there's at least one reference, and on some pages there's 3 or 4, and on some pages there's 5 or 6, and you just get the feeling that this book has been, excessively well researched. That they've really made a real effort to actually understand.
I could be wrong, but I feel like when I was reading it that a lot of the stuff kind of the research and the references that they've come across have been gathered over time, probably during just day-to-day work, and just
I get
curiosity.
the impression with Jonathan Suskind is the father, isn't he? And he's written a lot of books.
Richard Suskind.
Richard, sorry. Anyway, the older one has written a lot of legal books. And you sort of get the impression sometimes reading it that it's referenced in such a way as it could be defended in a court of law. It's that detailed sometimes.
Yes, I think they're really familiar with the text and they've read it before, and the reference just kind of comes to mind almost. To paint the picture, questions that they probably had themselves before they decided to write this book, going, well, why is a profession a profession? Maybe that was something that they had to argue in a case.
In some of the quotes though are clearly just quotes they like. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Richard Feynman, the Nobel laureate.
Yeah.
Such a dude. And they quote him, and his quote is, "If we look at a glass of wine closely enough, we see the entire universe. Just so it happens I have a glass of wine handy, so I could do that. If our small minds, for some convenience, divide this glass of wine, this universe into parts, physics, biology, geology, astronomy, psychology, and so on, remember that nature does not know it," which is a really interesting point about that. Basically saying that, I suppose, that
Hi, Henry.
Construct, aren't they?
Oh, welcome, Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
Yeah.
You're very young in that photo.
It's only 5 years ago.
Is it only 5 years ago? Man,
Yeah.
I've aged badly.
Mate, it's working with you. It's working with you the past 3 months that have aged me.
No one need to know that. No one need to know that. No one need to know what it was. Did you hear my Richard Feynman quote?
No.
No, we'll move on then.
Okay.
Moving on.
Where we started was the Elliot Krauss quote from Karl Marx to Richard Feynman, back to Elliot Krauss, about capitalism, that the forms that no longer place the person who needs the service as the first priority. So this is kind of going back, juggling, where you're a professional to make money, to earn a living, versus the professional, the upstanding citizen, pillar of the community. And there's definitely an ethical side to being a professional, isn't there? That's the picture that's painted. But as technology comes in, where does that stand? Does it come in with us? And also, as professions evolve, like you mentioned before, is something a profession or is something a trade? Where do you draw the line?
It's there's been that conflict of interest between personal gain and being a pillar of the community and providing an impartial service. I suppose that is what they call the grand bargain.
Yes, where I'm driving at is this whole thing about professional standards, the specialist knowledge, but also has regulated activities, has credentials. There are professional bodies and code of ethics that people sign up to when they become members of professional organizations. But that in some ways also kind of creates this club mentality and elitism, possibly, but at the same time also regulates the group. And they do mention that. Now, where I'm also driving this back is to the customer, where that quote you mentioned earlier about just the failings of professionals, how it's the use of jargon, and it's, to quote the book, use of jargon to mystify and ring fence their discipline. I was wondering if, now being from outside the AEC, I feel comfortable asking this. Sometimes there are business models that are entirely unethical and maybe not unethical, but they hinge on the use of jargon and by point to mystify their clients.
Personally, I'd personally call
Say that again?
I'd call that unethical. I think if you're being if you're intentionally obfuscating and shadowing and hiding an obvious truth to feather your own nest, I'd call that immoral, personally.
Okay. Yeah. Can you elaborate?
Well, I guess it just I'm looking at the exclusivity and conspiracy bit of the first chapter, and I think that idea of creating language. I mean, being kind of in the whole digital realm and in the built environment, we're horrendous at it, and I work with lots of clients in other kind of professional areas, and they're just as bad. People like to seem, I guess, people want to be knowledgeable. People want to be the expert that's called on, but it's hard to advise someone on what they should be doing if you don't understand what they're doing and they don't understand what you're doing. So I'm totally with them on the whole idea of this. There's this closed, exclusive, elitist approach, and that is just kind of, it's really reinforced by the whole professionalization process of the qualifications and the accreditation and being part of a professional institution. I mean, all these things are necessary, otherwise they wouldn't exist, but there are some pretty nasty side effects that create this opaque world where something that is basically an administrative task we have to go to a lawyer or whomever for, because we didn't know that it was just filling out a form or it was just doing this or that or the other. So yeah, I mean, I think that's for me, that's the key point there, that there's that whole there's that whole kind of underlying, you know, we're looking out for each other, we're looking out for our professions, we're going to make sure that we get paid about this.
This does drive it back to kind of guilds and controlling competition and maintaining prestige and self-interests and all of that. Now, I don't want to get too far into the other parts of the book, but you know how when 3D printing came out, everyone then goes, it's the democratization of production. You know, care to jump in, anyone?
Yeah, like I think the democratization of stuff. I mean, for me, 3D printing is a specific example of
it is there are other ones, but that tends to be the go-to.
Of I mean, my personal view of 3D printing now is that it's a mass customization tool rather than a mass production tool. It has democratized the ability to produce things to a certain extent, but it's still, unless you want to print, well, even if you want to print something that is 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters in plastic, you're looking at a huge outlay. You really have to be invested in that to do it yourself. And they're kind of what you'd hope the 3D printing as a service sort of thing is still seems a little bit far off. I mean, I've been looking to have a model printed for a while. I'm just waiting for the right product to turn up because I want, you know, the right accuracy, I want the right materials, and all that sort of thing. So I just, you know, I don't know. Can we get back to your point, because I have lots of thoughts on 3D printing, and I tend to be quite involved.
You think that will go off again? Okay, yeah.
To be fair, you've also got the sorry to jump in, Henry.
No, go ahead.
You've also got the 3D printing is a good one, but probably the biggest one the AEC industry had was about 30, 40 years ago with AutoCAD. You know, it opened the market to a whole new different skill set of people from the drawing boards when it was an art form, and you did a 7-year apprenticeship before you were classed as being proficient, to people coming out of college and university with next to no qualifications, just that they could use a computer and a mouse. You know, and we're seeing that again with the digital revolution that's going on with the aim for digital build printing, where it's Revit, and that's now blurring lines between consultants and technicians.
It is, and we're kind of dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, aren't we? Where it's, you know,
Yeah.
there used to be, you know, I've seen the photos of people, you know, lying on paper, just bashing out one version of one plan. But now we can do that 5 times in a day, and it's totally changed what it means to be a professional. So some people try to undervalue that sort of skill. They try and say, you know, that's not professional, it's just a skill. And it's very interesting, because I think you're exactly right. I think there are these tasks that professions say are theirs, you know. So the classic one from the legal perspective is things like parking fines. I mean, I worked in parking for a council years and years ago, and we responded in a very semi-automated way. We had a couple of paragraphs, we'd send them off, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, if someone ever got legal representation, they would do the same. They'd send us a couple of kind of paragraphs that were just totally static. They knew what they were. You know, it was always the same, and they just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And so suddenly the lines move, the goalposts move, is what I'm trying to say. So when someone was saying, oh, you know, like drawing a free line by hand, a straight line by hand is part of our profession. And, you know, I mean, I've known people who can draw straight lines who are amazing. It's an amazing skill, but you don't need to. So it doesn't need to be part of that profession. It's something that you can automate. It's really easy to automate, and it makes everyone's life easier if you automate it. So why do it by hand? Why do it by hand? Why, you know, if you're going to write a letter to the parking group, why write a letter by hand when you could just do a couple of clicks and just make it happen? And I think that's the theme in this book, is that there's lots of low-hanging fruit in all the professions that we're trying to take advantage of, and we're trying to kind of get underneath. So the example I've got is the going back to the car parking thing. There is some English kid, I think he's at Harvard, I'm not sure where he's at, but he's written a piece of code that writes letters. It's a little bot, and you just ask it to do it, and it just sends letters to contest your parking fines, and it's got a pretty good success rate. So it was something that was ripe for automation. He automated it, and he's not making a penny because he just did it, for the experiment, which I'm sure is shocking and appalling to many lawyers. But the same sort of thing can happen in construction and the built environment. There are tasks, in terms of drawing and modeling that take ages and ages and ages, and it just doesn't need to be that way. And the redrawing process, the rework process, even though we're automated now and it's all in CAD, even then it still takes ages. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement. So I think that's kind of one of the things that I take from this, is that we're trying to pretend that this whole grand bargain thing, that we are the professionals, and just leave it in our hands and we'll solve your problems. But if it wasn't for software and tools and technology and all that sort of stuff, we'd be massively left behind, because we wouldn't have the opportunity to keep improving. We'd be stuck there with there's only so fast you can draw straight lines by hand, but you can draw them much faster and increasingly faster using software. Oh, okay, I need to breathe now, so somebody else can
Yeah, talking about the speed of things that you were saying there is, I recently received an email from Knowledge Smart, who are a company who produced a load of online examinations for things like Revit. And they recently just published some results saying that after someone has spent around about 7 years working in a software tool, they get no more efficient. So they actually reach a plateau where they physically can't become any more efficient than what they already are. So it's when people reach those plateaus that you end up getting new breakthroughs to streamline things. And a lot of that is, like what Henry's saying, is it'll end up being automation. And if you can automate it, why not?
That's interesting. I wonder if that's related to the 7-year itch. Probably not.
Possibly.
Well, I think just development has changed, software development, agile development, the whole idea of developing something that you have a project and you do it and get it to this point and then round it out, and it's kind of within its own little box, and then you stop. That just doesn't work anymore. You have to, you let it roam free, and then you tweak it as depending how it roams now is what works for kind of cloud computing, for the things that are needed for today.
I guess you don't own stuff the way you used to.
No.
Own.
Yeah.
We still
that
kind of try and put copyright on things, but
and that's where everyone's still playing catch up. So it's fearful, and hence protectionism kind of, and so it's just kind of fighting with itself, really. I think what we've been talking about, it starts out with the standardizing and systemizing that what technology could do for professions, but the second point of the grand bargain, a more truly transformative change that technology can do to not just the individual professions seen within their own scope, but kind of maybe blurring them together, and just blending one profession into another because of tech, maybe because of, it as they boiled it down, it's about people having expert knowledge, and then it's about people who want that expert knowledge. It's very basic economics, and that supply and demand the supply and demand is changing because the access is changing. There's always been a supply. There's always been a demand, but the supply where people could relate and kind of control, it's being altered.
Yeah. I think it's that word access is key, isn't it?
Mm.
It's the access in the historic terms, and I think they reference it here. Access to a doctor used to be, make an appointment, turn up, wait, go in, state your case, and then you are now in front of the doctor and you are receiving their attention. And that's best case scenario, without kind of, certainly if you're in A&E and you end up going down the list because of different priorities, or there's all sorts of factors that can. There's a lot of moving. There's a lot of other factors involved. Just in terms of, say, carbon footprint from transport, and you've got to maintain a building, and you've got to or go to the building and keep the building warm, and all this sort of stuff. You can potentially, and I'm not saying it's better because I personally don't think it is yet, but I think it will be. You can just go online, here are my symptoms, and type it in and look at your results, and you'll probably end up thinking that you have everything if you go online and do that, because
the medical analogies or the medical example is a good one, because the reason why the NHS you see your doctor and it's only in a 10-minute slot is because someone did some review and saw that on average people just spent a little bit of time when they saw the GP, and so they said, okay, let's make it all 10 minutes to make it more efficient. Now, of course, the result of that is people feel like they're being rushed out the door. A GP doesn't actually get to the patient that might reveal other symptoms or other things linked into their condition. So it's kind of working with statistics, but the statistics are out of context in some way. But at the same time, yes, you could Google, find out Google whatever you have, and then read through a lot of stuff. Some from slightly more respectable websites, some from I guess kind of like media boards or message boards and things, and even that we have to learn how to filter, and I think that's the thing.
That's a very
the client
point.
Or the customer is changing, so what's needed from the professional is changing as well, because we can self-filter a lot of things. Of course, that asks that every individual, it's a much higher bar just to do kind of just basic modern life now.
And it's an interesting one. My dad's now a retired GP, and we used to talk about this sort of thing. And there are, and I think this is still true, there's kind of 5% of NHS patients cost something like 90% of the budget. Long-term, persistent, expensive health.
They did say,
and then
in the book they mentioned that it's. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so many words.
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying that
yeah.
In the book they mentioned that the long-term kind of lifestyle-related illnesses, kind of heart disease and that sort of thing, makes up for 70% of NHS spending. Carry on. Your point.
So I don't know, just reinforces my message.
Yeah, reinforcing what you were saying. But
you've got a huge amount of people who come through who don't have anything particularly serious wrong with them, but they could have solved online themselves, and we could have done something about that. But we're not in a position at the moment to, say, authorize prescription medication without a doctor present, which I think that's right at the moment. But I can see a world where it makes sense that if you're going to make some sort of professional decision, you don't need to be there, and it is already happening. I think this is another interesting aspect of the future of the professions. Is it's very much looking at, and it unabashedly says so. It's looking at the West. It's looking at England, UK, America, and Europe. That's what it's looking at. And you see things like in Africa where, for example, mobile banking was a bit of a novelty, and we've not, certainly not in the UK, we've not implemented it fantastically well. It's not as easy to use as other apps that have come along more recently.
We also have more regulation that bringing that in.
We also have, well, yes, indeed, we also have more regulation, but they certainly don't make an effort to make software usable, or indeed secure, really. So, I mean, by that I mean that certainly for my bank, the password requirements, my password is, I feel, significantly less secure than my email password, because, you know, they've said, you know, why would you need more than 8 characters for your password? Which just feels a bit out of date, to be honest. But I suppose the point I'm trying to get to is that there is this, you know, there's this kind of they're an incumbent, the banking sector in the UK. They're an incumbent. They know what they're doing. They know how to do it. And we've got to do technology thing. Oh, okay, well, throw some money at it, make it happen, great. But in places where there is no infrastructures, so certain parts of Africa where the experience of banking is mobile banking. So in that world, they have leapfrogged a lot of the infrastructure. And for me, that applies to, this goes beyond professions. It goes into kind of, the infrastructure is professional. So a professional institution is, in my mind, infrastructure. But at the same time, the example I like to use is our Victorian train lines versus Japan and the Shinkansen. I don't think we could have built the bullet train in the UK if we hadn't had a huge amount of existing rail infrastructure. We'd have been crying out for it. We'd have wanted it, and we'd have made it happen, and it would just be fine, you know. Whereas what we have is we have a lot of rail lines that are archaic and don't particularly fulfill the need that we currently have of them.
So you're saying,
and we need to upgrade them. And I'm basically making the exact same analogy between that infrastructure, which is very built environment construction-y, and the professions where, you know, we have these very long established professions that were set up for a world that doesn't exist anymore, basically. I mean that is the long and the short of it. A world that doesn't exist anymore.
yes, so you're saying we're holding ourselves back because we've
throwing a grenade at you there, haven't I? Oh, I get so passionate about this stuff.
No. Well, that's what this is for. It's a platform for discussion. Get it all out. Yeah, I think we're our own stumbling block to truly transformative change. You know, for accessing expertise, because you have ourselves who are either used to old ways of doing things, and then people who actively try to resist, protectionist and otherwise, to maintain what they're used to and maintain their advantage. And like you say, because we're in the infrastructure and it requires ripping parts of us out to put something new in. And that's like a building site, you know, if you have, I work in conservation, so it is always more complicated to conserve something in situ and also try to implement lots of new things around it while maintaining, keeping the heritage assets stable. You know, when you're digging up all around it and destabilizing the foundations, it's a much bigger job. There's much more planning involved. There's a lot more. You do a little here, you sure up a little there, instead of it when it's a blank canvas and you could just go.
Yeah, that's it. I think that sort of complexity is going to be the sort of thing that is going to keep us in a job, really, in terms of the future. You know, that there's not that quick fix. Oh, just
Well,
install that bit of software or buy that hardware, and oh, suddenly we can manage, this highly complex affair. I think that.
well, they do. To be fair, the Suskins do say in the end of the chapter, and I quote, the professions or elements of them should survive and prosper because they bring value and benefits that no system or tool can. So they're not advocating, the annihilation of professions. There will always be a need for professionals. And yeah, as people who hold that expertise. But inevitably, the wave of technology is not just coming; it's hitting us. It's the wave is breaking on us, and I'm interested to jump into chapter 2 because this is when they start talking about different types of professions like health and architecture, and see what they've gathered, what information they've gathered. I haven't finished reading the book as Henry has, so yes.
I'm more of a dipper than a reader. I dipped in and out a lot, so I kind of gave it a few months. Yeah, it'd be really good to move on to chapter 2. I guess probably drawing to a natural conclusion almost there in terms of chapter 1. We've discussed the general kind of purpose of the book, its scope, where it's going, what it's trying to do, what we think about that. And, I think the next part is the interesting bit in terms of what does that mean for specific professions?
Yes. I think they mentioned, this is almost as an aside, they mentioned that the 19th century industrial model of professionals, the salaried professional, kind of superseded what was the self-employed independent professional. Now, being a self-employed independent professional, I find it curious and interesting if we're going back, if the pendulum is swinging back the other way. It doesn't necessarily mean we're locked in a back and forth, but there is because of companies and that sort of thing now, there's a lot more self-employment for good and for bad. And I'm curious, again, haven't read any further, but I wonder if the next chapters touch on that, and if, because surely technology enables that so much more. It drastically reduces overhead, so that more people can take up self-employed work and be competitive. So yes, I'm really curious to see if they touch on that again.
Well, Napoleon did call the Brits a nation of shopkeepers, and I think that that small, single-handed or small to medium enterprise spirit is strong in us. And I think that's actually one of our strengths that we have. Lots of people are specialists in this little area, and it's just about. I think the current challenge, the lens, I suppose, I'm viewing this book through, is that we're trying to understand how our current state of play, where we have lots of professions, lots of professionals, lots of different companies, can be made to achieve a common good. That's what we're trying to achieve. And there's lots of room for improvement.
That does round us out, I think, because that brings us back to the professional and code of ethics and morals and such. And one of the quotes that they had was from Durkheim, where professional grouping is a moral force capable of curbing individual egoism, nurturing a feeling of common solidarity, and preventing the law of the strongest from being applied too brutally in industrial and commercial relationships. Now, that last bit tells me it's professional bodies can, or at least just the notion of professional groups, can keep check the big guy versus little guy. I'm not sure if that's actually what's happening anymore, but I'd like to hope that we can.
Yeah, I think that's. Sorry, but we can't forget that there is a very positive aspect to the professions and the support that they provide people, and the reassurance that I'm getting a good service. I know if I get my service from someone who is accredited by so and so, or whose qualification is accredited by so and so, that I will get a good service. So it does come in swings and roundabouts, doesn't it? And I guess I think for me, I mean, I'm naturally a very ambivalent person in terms of, I always try and see the other side of it. I think there's the obvious first side of this, which is that professions provide that stability and that certainty and so on and so forth. And at the same time, they hide the truth. They seek to feather their nests at other people's expenses. They seek to elevate themselves beyond what is perhaps necessary, and they take the work that is difficult and the work that is really, really, really easy and kind of treat it the same, charge the same. So on one day they'll be making no money, and on the next day they'll be making loads. And then all of a sudden, Neil Thompson turns up out of nowhere
to sort it all out.
No, he's got the final thoughts. We're just putting our final thoughts together, Neil, about what. He's not allowed a microphone because he's a bad person.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi, Neil.
Hi. How'd it go?
A really good chat.
Huh?
We had a really good chat.
Yeah.
You look slightly desperate. You're right.
Oh, yeah, slightly running around sorting fireworks out. I can't see your face, Henry. Are you the faceless dotBUILTenvironment circle?
Yes, he is the voice of .be.
I've just
You're like you could be like Siri, but the dotBUILTenvironment Siri.
Okay. Ask me a question about the future of the professions, and I'll do my best Siri response.
Hey, .be, tell me something about the future of professions.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said. Could you repeat that, please? Is that Siri enough like for you?
Yeah, I think that
worked really well, especially with the round circle pulsing when you spoke.
Yeah, I think that was.
I've got this. The Future of the Professions is a book that examines how I can't do it. I can't do it on. I could do it if I wasn't on the spot so much. How professions could technologies to enable a more efficient and effective solution. I don't know.
We also say it in a weird robot way as well.